we talked, we've mentioned social media. I couldn't help but, it's not obviously similar to some of this controversy surrounding Facebook and Twitter and everything else. But once again, what's one of the things that we're talking about is maybe misinformation and pump and dumps, and it's occurring on social media again. I'm wondering whether it's part of the same problem, the type of regulation that we finally need to consider. And like I said, we should always have a light touch with regulation, but you're seeing the way things can get started. Again, this is different. Maybe it's Reddit, maybe it's not Facebook, but you're seeing the same situation. At this point, it's not about an election. It's not about an insurrection, but there are interesting things happening that seem to be spawned to some extent, or at least blown out of proportion by social media again. Adina.
Well, I do think, though, that as we look at these new technologies that are there available to everyone, including investors, I think it's also important for regulators to understand that, manipulation is manipulation, whether it's happening through a new technology medium or it's happening through traditional mail.
About that. This is Wall Street. This is Adina Friedman. She's NASDAQ president and CEO. Now, why so much consternation? Why the problem? Why the issue? Why are these guys basically calling for some level of regulation? Why are the oligarchs and the rich crying? Why were they crying so much on television yesterday? If you turn on CNBC, that's all you heard, crying, whining. We need regulation. Something needs to be done, etc. When the little guy uses his technology, disruptive technology, in order to bolster a brick and mortar company to the chagrin of hedge funds and speculators that spent billions trying to undermine these guys, well, then all of a sudden people they're bothered. They have qualms. They're crying. They're complaining about, these little guys, these people, they're using this technology to buy a stock. I don't think they understand what the stock is. It's a It doesn't matter. They understand perfectly well. The thing is called Wall Street bets. They can bet and purchase any stock that they want. It's phenomenal. This is talking about market regulation or market manipulation. What does it look like when a politician, let's say Perdue and Loeffler, are able to sell their stocks after getting a briefing from in Congress on how bad COVID-19 is going to be? When they sell those stocks, when those congressmen sell those stocks, is that in any way market manipulation by them basically getting an advantage over other people when the numbers go down because of their selling the stock based on information that they had? What about companies or hedge funds that are planning on shorting the stock and they walk out and say, hey, we're going to short that stock right there. We're going to short it. And what happens? A feeding frenzy happened, meaning the hedge fund, in saying that they were shorting it and putting it on media and writing it in the newspapers and whatnot, create a condition where the stock goes magically down. You've basically put chum in the water telling people you're going to destroy a stock. Then when the stock drops, you seem like a wizard when really you just put the stuff out on the airwaves in order to get the desired effect. All of that is market manipulation. Even if you want to go to the micro trading, where these guys are able to do trades just faster than the competition and definitely just faster than you, John Q. Public. It is phenomenal what we've been seeing over the past few days. And of course, I'm talking about Gamestop. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Reddit group named Wall Street Bets, 2 million members, decide to bolster retail stores. And in bolstering these retail stores, GameStop was one of them. Now, GameStop had been shorted mercilessly. If I'm not mistaken, there were more shorts than actual regular purchases of the stock in and of itself. There's obvious reason why. It's a brick and mortar store. They're selling video games. Video games at this point can be purchased through Steam or through Xbox or whatever carrier that you're using. It's antiquated. It's a brick and mortar store in COVID, meaning 40% of retail bit the dust. And so retail was already struggling before COVID hit. It got that much more dicier after COVID hit. So the short sellers were basically in a feeding frenzy on various retail shops, this being one of them, with the thought of, we're going to crash this. And they speculated to the tune of billions. Now, all of the money that they dropped into the shorting the stock, as the stock increased in value because the people on the site, on the Reddit site, because they kept dumping money into the stock kept going up. So a $10 stock is now at like $400. I shit you not. The stock is worth like $10. And it is like at $400. And it's not just them. AMC, the movie theater, same thing. The AMC one makes more sense because once you get inoculations, the movie theaters will most likely come back. That becomes a cultural thing, not necessarily just a technical thing. It is difficult to get the same movie experience in your house as opposed to, let's say, Gamestop, where you could just purchase those video games. Think of Tower Records. And some of you might say, what's Tower Records? Exactly. Tower Records became massively popular at one point, became redundant at the point where Napster comes out and basically undermines it. Here's the catch, though. I don't care that they lost $13 billion today. I don't care that they lost billions of dollars over the last few days as a result of John Q. Public putting their money behind something that they want to put their money behind. It's their choice, right? I mean, after all, nobody is there to protect John Q. Public when John Q. is making a mistake, when John Q. is putting his money into the stock market. And all of this manipulation that was taking place before, nobody was calling for regulation for that. When John Q. lost his shirt, nobody cared. He just wept in silence. As for Reddit and the bets, nobody even cared when these guys were shorting the stock mercilessly. So it's like all of this consternation, basically, because the billionaire class, the oligarchs, the wealth of this nation lost, and they're not supposed to lose. It's a casino. It's just like any other game of craps. You put your money down on a number, or in this case, on the stock. And in putting your money down on the stock, you have a certain idea of the world in regards to why you're putting that down there. And you know, as a flat fact, that it can go up or it can go down. And the entire premise, to some degree, on playing the stock market is the idea that makes sure or hope that it goes up. But again, it's a bet. Every gambling establishment, meaning from the standpoint of the individuals there that are playing those games, want it to go up. Well, putting your money down is not a foregone conclusion that you're going to keep that money, let alone that it's going to go up. And in this very specific case, they took a tact of short selling. They wanted to eat these companies alive and make a ton of cash in the process of doing it. And they lost their shirts. Now, when I say that the stock market is gambling and everybody understands that it's gambling when they go in and there's a chance that you could lose your money, there could be an act of God, there could be a fire, there could be a flood, there could be a pandemic, or there could be disruptive technologies like a group on Reddit that decides to buy up stock in regards to retail. An idea now that all of these guys are boo-hooing. Oh, we need regulation. Oh, there is a federal government. We need a bailout. The hedge funds need a bailout. Utterly, entirely, radically hilarious. Welcome. Oh, and by the way, this has just been upped, meaning the ante. Because now the oligarchs and the rich, the wealth of the nation, are now striking back. They've sullied, they've steeled their jaw from all the money that they lost yesterday. I mean, all of these guys were bitching big time. Oh, my buddy at these hedge funds are getting slaughtered. Well, these sites that were allowing people to do this, just like other sites, let's say on Twitter or on Facebook, those sites are also held at the whim by people with means. And if those people with means who might have even had friends in Wall Street don't necessarily like what you're saying, or don't necessarily like the fact that they themselves or their friends might be losing their shirts, they take action. And in this case, the oligarchs, the wealth of the nation, have started to fight back. This is an astonishing story. Under normal circumstances, nobody cares when people lose their shirt in the stock market. But in this particular situation, the reality of it is the stock market wasn't supposed to go down for the hedge funds, for the wealth of the nation, for the billionaire class. That was supposed to go up. The issue here, that now they want to talk about market manipulation, whatever. The issue here has to do with them being angry that the little guy is able to use technology to cobble their money together to do X or to do Y. And this is fair game. There's nothing against it. It's not market manipulation. These guys are buying a stock that they themselves want to buy just because it hurts the speculators who clearly at this point unwisely drop tons of money into hoping those businesses fail. That's on them. That's the risk. Melvin Capital had to put in $2.75 billion cash injection just to keep themselves afloat. Now, they're saying they're not going belly up and there's no danger of it. Other reports are unclear. Other companies are supposedly in a similar situation where they were betting heavily on these companies to fail. These people have no good ends in the market, meaning these are not people who are working for the betterment of our industrial system or adding to our well-being in a society and everything else. They're just in it to pump it, dump it, and make as much money as they can out of it. They don't give a shit about the economy or the repercussions of their actions and their cash. I have zero, with people getting in a Robinhood app, American Trade, have these conversations about the stocks that you want to buy and the things that you want to support, and you do it. God bless. However, in this case, there is a response. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do it. Yeah, these guys lost their shirts. Investors made a choice. And like I said, it's a bet. It's a gamble. You're putting your money down and you hope the money goes up. Now, you might say, well, there's research and everything else. Fair enough. You could say that there's good sense and things that you logically expect. Fair enough. By the same token, there are acts of God, fires, floods, pandemics, or technology. If you were a horse and buggy, I'm pretty sure you didn't necessarily like the fact that the car was going to basically take your job, or the elevator was going to take the job of the elevator guy. In this case, the disruptive technology is doing what this did to, let's say, music when Napster came out. That all of these people realize that they can band together and lump their money into benefiting and supporting stocks that they wanted to support. It's that simple. And that's what they did. It just so happens that the people on Wall Street and the people on CNBC lost their shirts. And in their head, the stock is not worth this much. So what? There's a lot of stocks that aren't worth X or Y. You even have zombie stocks because of the money that the government has been pumping into the system itself. And these guys have been able to get these low interest loans in order to keep their company just walking along. It's not just retail. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And it's even possible that Gamestop can make a certain adjustments in order to make this work. I'm making the point that it's not necessarily an irrational buy, depending upon what your objectives are and whether or not it's an irrational buy or not. So what? So what? Who protects John Q. Public when he makes that irrational buy and loses his shirt? Nobody. Who protects that guy who buys that crappy stock that he didn't know that much about, but he wanted to invest in the stock market and he loses his shirt? Nobody. Apps like Robinhood or Ameritrade, or for this matter, there's another one that my wife uses. Those apps have been able to bring people, a large collection of people, into the stock market and into economics of sorts. And in doing so, has opened it up. Keep in mind, the top 10% or the top 80% of stocks are owned by the top 10%. So you have a small body of people who own them to begin with. You have another group that just gets small amounts. They may have a few thousand. They don't necessarily have these $20 million positions or whatnot. But in this very specific case, those people are able to now come together, discuss, talk, make choices on what they think is going to take place, make choices on what they want to back up, make choices from the standpoint of either ideology or financial interests on what they want to support. You can say the same thing about politics, that people vote for politicians that are not in their best interests. What are you going to do? Stop them from doing that? And what are you going to do with this? Stop these places from basically allowing people to talk about stocks and buy the stocks that they want to buy? Is that what you're saying? that you're going to put restrictions on the ability for people to buy various stocks based on the conversations that they have about those stocks? Hey, I'll tell you this. If you're going to do that, then you need to take CNBC off the air. Just saying. This is Cramer. Listen to this. They've even gone so far as to say, maybe this is foreign interference.
And Cohen got in. He bought 15% at $8. He's on the board. We like the stock. How is that bad? Or do you think that they're concentrated and doing some sort of manipulation if they say they like the stock?
Well, I don't know if they're concentrated because I don't have subpoena power and I can't really go out and look at it. I can argue. I don't even know if there are foreign powers at work here behind the scenes trying to make chaos of our.
You could argue that. You could argue that. I can argue the word is flat. I can argue that you're an idiot. I can argue that you might have lost a lot of money here and you feel in some kind of way because you lost a lot of money here. I can argue here that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you're just basically talking in this way because you're bothered that these unwashed masses has learned about fire. Basically, the fire has been stolen from the gods. And the gods are unhappy about the fact that fire has been stolen from the gods. We are the ones who are supposed to remain warm from this heat. How dare you? And shake their fists. Foreign actors. You can read it. It's not foreign actors. It's people who decided they wanted to maintain real estate while giving a bloody nose to oligarchs and hedge funds. Jim Cramer, the voice of reason, telling them, get out of here. So what happens? What's the response? You have CNBC billionaires crying and millionaires crying all day. People who talk about stocks all the time, complaining about other people talking about stocks. And in doing that, all day whining about it. It even was, Joe Biden was even brought into it, where the press secretary had to respond to it. Discord dropped. The server was dropped for a while. Apparently, this went on for a little bit, meaning it was taken off air for a bit. Now, the reason, right here, the server has been told, the server has been on our trust and safety team's radar for some time. This is about the Reddit group and the server, Discord server, that this group was basically on Reddit. The server has been on our trust and safety team's radar for some time due to occasional content that violates community guidelines and violence and spreading misinformation. Over the past few months, we've issued multiple warnings to the server admin. Today, we decided to remove the server and its owner from Discord for continuing to allow hateful, discriminatory content and repeated warnings. It is completely coincidental, that we lost billions. That's coincidental. That maybe when they took this down, in their head was, hey, these people lost their shirts. Maybe there were threats against the company. Maybe the company just understood from the standpoint of wealth, understanding wealth, just from an ideological standpoint, just not necessarily liking it. Even the idea of misinformation. Are you arguing that misinformation is buying those retail stocks because you don't necessarily like the idea that they're buying these stocks? Oh, this is the problem, right? The censorship aspect of this. You have 2 million people on the site. 2 million people on the site. And having that, I think it might be more now. I think it was like 2 to 4 million. How do you police 4 million people on the site? And is it by definition, just from that many people, by probability alone, you're going to have some level of hate speech? And is that indicative and reflective of the entirety of the site? What I'm trying to get at here is pretty suspicious that this site was closed down when they were giving all of this financial information to people who decided to buy retail and who basically rebuffed these short sellers. Understand, the short sellers had to actually come due on their positions, meaning they had to pay their positions. And the very point of them paying their positions raises the stock price even higher. Think about it for a moment. You had a ton of stock that you basically short sold, and it's not going down. And you got to cover your position. And you got to cover your position to the tune of billions. That's basically what has been taking place, which, again, drives the stock even higher. Right here. To be clear, we did not ban the server due to financial fraud related to GameStop or other stocks. There was no financial fraud. Why are you even bringing that up? Nobody said anybody was beating their wife. You just added that. And I know a lot of these Wall Street people or the political people or people want to bitch and complain about this. But basically, this is not illegal. What they're doing, this conversation about what they want to buy, this is perfectly legit. And I got to tell you, a lot less bothersome to me than oligarchs or politicians manipulating our economic system for their own ends. That's one way that they got hit. They eventually came back on. Apparently it was short term, but they definitely were shut down for a bit. Here's the other one. Robinhood, Interactive Brokers restrict trading in Gamestop and other hot stocks. They've stopped the ability for people to buy more of that stock. Think about that's mind-blowing. REFILE. Robinhood, Interactive Brokers restrict trading in GameStop. So right here, online trading platforms Robinhood and Interactive Brokers said on Thursday they restricted trading in shares of GameStop, BlackBerry, and other companies that have seen hefty gains this week due to social media-driven trading frenzy. Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong? You need to explain to me why that's wrong. A lot of people decide to buy a stock. Fair enough. The stock market is a casino. They know when they put that money on that stock is royally overinflated. And at some point, that stock is going to collapse back to earth to the tune of like 90% or more. And the people who decided to jump in on that clusterfuck is going to get a haircut, to put it mildly. Meaning, it's their choice. They're not unclear on what they're doing. They may see the stock go up, like talking about as people are jumping in the bandwagon, but those people are trying to make a bet that they're going to be able to get out and get some money before that stock plummets back to earth. That's what's taking place. It's not misinformation at that point. It's people making a choice. And CNBC, I've never seen so many millionaires and billionaires in my life weep in the way that they have wept. Weep on. I think you will be perfectly okay. Right here. Looks like Robinhood stopped supporting GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry, and Nokia. Users can choose to close out their positions, but you can't buy anymore. How are you stopping people from buying a stock? How? And the excuse that you saw right there was basically, we don't like, right here. They don't like the idea that these guys are buying these stocks because in their head, these stocks are supposed to crash. It is okay when John Q. Public buys those stocks in normal circumstances and they lose money. It's okay when, the public blindly buys this or that. But at the point where the public start showing the ridiculousness and casino-like aspect of this market, then all of a sudden people have feelings. You can't have feelings because people want to use your platform or buy those stocks in a particular way. They can buy those stocks all they want. You can't turn around and say, you can buy all the stocks that you want until you get to the point that you give us a headache, which is basically where we are. They got a bloody nose. The billionaire, the oligarchs, got kicked in the teeth for speculating over destroying retail. An application called Robinhood, whose moniker is to take from the rich, to give to the poor, somewhat of a noble pursuit, gets inverted. Because fact of the matter is, just because Robinhood started an application like that, they could have also still been doing it for capitalistic reasons. And in doing so, the people who started it, I would have to look this up, but oftentimes when people start businesses, they start those businesses in things that they know. And if that's true for this, then it's very possible that the people who are basically started this and who may be in charge of some of the decisions that are taking place on that platform might also be friends with some of these people who are losing their shirts, may also know or float in the same circles with the people who are losing their shirts, and as such, take action to protect them. So instead of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, you basically have a platform with that moniker protecting, throwing their body on the rich. Every bit as much as Obama. I'm standing between you and the pitchforks. Censorship. And notice how they immediately went to this idea of foreign interference. And not just foreign interference, basically shutting down aspects of people's communications on purchasing stock. They did nothing illegal. They did nothing wrong. A group of people can come together and make a choice on what they want to buy. That's exactly and precisely what they did. And the way that these guys talk about it on CNBC and whatnot, that apparently is not necessarily pushing and moving a stock because of the advice or the information that they give on CNBC. Get a lot of people together where they can kind of talk, chat, make determinations about what they want to buy or what they don't want to buy. That, all of a sudden, that can't be had. these are the same people that were perfectly okay with taking down Argentina. These were the same people that turned around with disaster capitalism in Puerto Rico and rape that colony blind. So I have no sympathy for these hedge funds, these oligarchs that decided to make a huge amount of money at the expense of brick and mortar. So, yeah. Look, it's funny until that thing falls back to earth. And when that thing falls back to earth, there's going to be a kaboom. There are going to be some people who think they can ride the dragon, get in and get out, let's say with a few bucks or whatever. But don't be caught holding the habitator. See you guys in a few. Make sure you are subscribed, because sometimes people magically unsubscribe. I think that's a Google thing. They've changed something where people are unsubscribed sooner. So definitely make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the button for the notification. Like, share, and subscribe.